To vaccinate or not to vaccinate? That is the question. Well, probably more specifically, what are the consequences if you choose not to take this coronavirus vaccine? Now, listen, I am not an anti-vaxxer by any stretch of the imagination. I've had all my vaccines. I've never had a problem with vaccines. I usually would get a flu shot, though there are certainly years that I haven't gotten a flu shot just because I've been lazy or whatnot. But usually I would get one because I travel a lot for work. And if I don't have to catch conference crud or airline crud and then be sick for a week, hey, I would rather not do that. Am I going to get this coronavirus vaccine? Well, probably, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm waiting until the last possible moment. I'm waiting until I'm absolutely forced to take it simply because I'm not sure of this. This to me seemed to be a really, really rushed process. I think there are questions specifically for women who are pregnant or trying to get pregnant. I'm a woman of a certain age. I don't have kids yet. I don't want to F that up if I decide to go down that route. But I do suspect ultimately I'm probably going to be forced to because I suspect the airlines are going to force people to before they let people get on a plane. And that kind of sucks, but it also is what it is. But there are other consequences that are now coming to light, like this one. This article from CNBC, yes, your boss can fire you if you refuse to get a COVID vaccine. So this is certainly something that a lot of people who are gainfully employed for working for someone else are going to have to contend with moving forward. But what I wanted to spell in this video is this kind of myth that your job is only in danger if you don't get this coronavirus vaccine, because that's not true. The framing of this article leaves a lot of context out, and we're going to talk about it and what I think people should do if their employers try to force them to get a coronavirus vaccine. But before we get into that, listen, folks, I do daily content around news, politics, culture, really whatever I find interesting, and I hope you find it interesting as well. If you enjoy the content I'm putting out, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel because YouTube is making it really, really difficult for people like me to grow, shadow banning us from people who are not already subscribed to our channels, all that sort of stuff. So you can help me and help support the channel by subscribing, turning on notifications, giving this a thumbs up so hopefully YouTube will know to recommend my content to you, sharing it out to your friends and family. I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's take a look at this here article. The country's first COVID vaccine could be authorized for emergency use as soon as Thursday. Now, we know now that it was authorized, Pfizer's was authorized. This article just happened to be written before that. But as difficult as the research, development, and distribution stages have been, some experts argue the hardest part of fighting the virus is actually what comes next, convincing the U.S. population to take the vaccine. Roughly 4 in 10 Americans say they would definitely or probably not get a vaccine, according to a recent study by the Pew Research Center. While this number is higher than it has been 2 months ago, to achieve herd immunity, experts say that around 70% of the population needs to be vaccinated or have natural antibodies. Employers, however, may not be taking no for an answer. A couple of corporate clients are leaning towards making the COVID vaccine mandatory, says, I don't know how to say that first name, Dunn, a Dallas labor and employment attorney. His clients range from companies manufacturing to food and beverages, industries that have been battered for months due to the pandemic and government-mandated lockdowns. Well, maybe if they were allowed to just go about their business, that would actually take care of a lot of the problem, wouldn't it? A vaccine promises employers a return to some form of normal, which is desperately needed as businesses look to recover profits. Now, just side note here, the businesses could have a return to normal anytime that the governments that they are in, the state jurisdictions that they are in, say, go back to work. That is when things are going to actually return to normal. People are pinning all their hopes and dreams on this wonder vaccine. That just makes absolutely no sense to me. This is a virus that 99% of the people who get it will survive. And particularly those who are younger, who do not have comorbidities, you're really not in a great deal of danger with this virus. Your chances of survival are extremely high, just like with the flu. Do companies mandate people get the flu shot? Well, no, a lot of them don't. And frankly, like, I truly do not understand this mentality with this virus. Like, people are their own worst enemy. It's like they want something to be afraid of. They need this to be afraid of. It feeds their anxieties. I don't know what it is, man, but it just absolutely makes no sense to me. I digress. Here's what I really want to say about this. Employers saying that they are going to fire people for not taking a vaccine, well, guess what, folks? Here's the real deal. The vast majority of people in this country are employees at will. And what that means is that your employer can fire you at any time, for any reason, or for no reason at all. I'm going to say that again. Most people in this country can be fired at any time for any reason or for no reason at all. Now, where it tends to get a little sticky is when you get into people who are part of protected classes, because basically they have a much easier time suing, and particularly in California. California has really, really specific labor laws, which make it actually much easier for employees to sue their employer than in many other states. But the general rule of thumb is that you don't even have to do anything to be fired. That's reality. And a lot of people really don't understand this. They think that anytime someone is fired from an employer, it's because there was just cause. And that is really not the case at all. A lot of times people are fired because of personality conflicts, sometimes because the manager feels like the employee is outshining them and they're afraid of them. They're afraid they're going to come in and take their job. I mean, people get fired for all number of reasons that have nothing to do with their actual performance. And oftentimes employers are actually advised by their attorneys, by like this Dunn labor attorney guy, who they will actually be advised by these people not to give a reason that the employee was fired, which, by the way, is a BS horrible thing to do to someone. I had that done to me by an employer when I was in my 20s. I got fired one day out of nowhere and I wasn't given a reason for it. They actually said, "We cannot give you a reason. Our lawyer has asked us not to give you a reason." And it was awful for me. It was like I had no closure about what happened in the situation. I had no idea what I had done to deserve it. And I was like at that time where I really thought, like most people do, that if you get fired, it's because of your performance. Well, they ain't giving you a reason. Something nefarious is going on. So I guess this is a long-winded way of saying that could they technically fire you for not taking this COVID vaccine? Yes, but that doesn't mean your job is ever secure. Your job is never secure when you're working for someone else. And this is a time, I mean, I think the lockdowns have sucked. I have no idea why the American people have taken this nonsense like they do, but there are benefits to it as well. This has given us several months of, most of you are working from home or don't really have to go into the office. Some of you, unfortunately, were furloughed from your jobs, lost your jobs. But the good part of this is it's given us time to pivot. A lot of people have started businesses during this time. A lot of people who weren't doing things online before have now built those businesses up. And so you have to take everything and try to use it to your best possible advantage. Go into the situation knowing that as long as you work for someone else, you can always be fired at any time for any reason that they see fit, whether you deserve it or not. That is simply the reality of the situation. Let's keep going. One of Dunn's clients in the restaurant sector thinks a compulsory inoculation requirement could be a game changer for the business. They think it gives them a competitive advantage, says Dunn. They could say to their customers, "Hey, our restaurant is safe. All of our employees have been vaccinated." And that is a horrible reason. I'm sorry. Just because you can, this is an argument I get into with lawyers all the time. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And this guy even says later, under the law, an employer can force an employee to get vaccinated, and if they don't take it, fire them. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And if you work for an employer that is going to force you to make a medical decision, dude, go find another job. Honestly, I would never put up with this crap. And regardless of whether or not I was planning on taking the vaccine or not, because if an employer can force you to make this medical decision, that means they can force you to make any number of other medical decisions, and it is not their business. So if your employer starts to mandate vaccine, I would strongly question about whether or not that is the company that you want to work for, because they obviously think that it is their place to nose into the private business of their employees. And that's not cool. So, I'm going to link this article in the description below. You can go take a look at it yourself. Also, they do note here, anti-discrimination laws also provide some protections under the American with Disabilities Act. Employers who don't want to be vaccinated for medical reasons are eligible to request an exemption. In this case, an employer would have to provide reasonable accommodation, such as allowing the employees to work remotely. But you know what my answer to that is? Listen, airlines have been mandating these masks against the advice of the CDC and frankly medical professionals because not everyone is able to wear a mask for an extended period of time. Airlines have been mandating this stuff for months, blatantly ignoring HIPAA, blatantly ignoring the ADA. What is to stop an employer from doing the exact same thing? I think if there's one thing that we've learned this year is that we don't really live in a nation of laws. When those laws aren't going to be enforced, then what do they really mean? So do I trust the ADA to protect anyone from this? No. Absolutely not, because employers can just choose to ignore it and then experience absolutely no consequences, just like the dang airlines. So bottom line, folks, is this. If your employer wants to make you do this, I recommend you start looking for another job or use this time that we have to us where so many people are moving businesses online, building careers online, building new ventures online. Use this to your advantage to create something of your own, because the only job security that you ever really have is when you work for yourself. I would not trade working for myself for anything in this world. Yes, sometimes it's scary. There have been times in my career when I have not known where that next paycheck was going to come from. But guess what? It also keeps you on your toes. It keeps you focused. And at the end of the day, you have a security that just can't be bought when you work for someone else. So that's my 2 cents on the subject. Listen, if you enjoyed this video, again, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. You can also get all of my videos ad-free on my locals community. Information is literally right below me, right in that little box that says support all tech. Go to kb.locals.com. You'll get all my videos ad-free. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.